Hello, today I'm going to show you how I made this little pumpkin using my 22-pin knitting machine. I have a blog post that is linked in the description. I'll put a little pin in the video here too. You can find a PDF download that I put there. It's free and it includes hand knitting and knitting machine instructions. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to start with a tube. This is 43 rows, and remember the information about the yarn and other details are on my blog, linked in the description. You're going to start by cinching both ends of the tube closed. We're going to fold the tube inside of itself so that it's double thick. This helps so that when you stuff the pumpkin, you don't see any of the polyfill coming through the stitches. And then we're going to cinch everything tight down here at the bottom, and we're going to tie it off in a few knots. Okay, I like to tie quite a few knots just to make sure everything is secure, and then I'm going to trim a kind of longish yarn tail. That way if anything comes untied, I have like a little safety net there. Then you're going to take that yarn tail that you just cut off and thread it onto a darning needle. Now we're going to go to the folded edge and create a drawstring. We're going to pick up the legs of a stitch. You can see the stitch here, and we're just going to do like the right side of that leg. And we're going to pick up every other stitch to create a drawstring. Once we have our drawstring created, we're going to do a pre-stuff with the polyfill. I like to stuff the polyfill and just kind of get the general shape of the pumpkin, and then after I kind of see how it's going to be looking, then I'm going to add my safety eyes just to see like where I want them to be. Okay, so now I'm going to add my safety eyes at this point. I like to add the safety eyes when I have the stuffing in, instead of just doing it with the tube empty. This way I can kind of get a general idea of the shape of the pumpkin, and I know where I want these eyes to be. I'm going to add them right here in this row of knitting, just like in between one of those stitches. And I like to use this, kind of squish it down a little bit, because once I tighten up everything on the pumpkin, it's going to be a little squished. So that also helps me figure out exactly where the placement of these eyes are going to be. And usually what I'll do is I'll just put them right next to each other with maybe one or two rows of knitting in between. Once I'm happy with where the safety eyes are going to be, I just kind of pop out the outside, and I don't really take the fluff all the way out, but I just am going to pop in the safety backings. And then I'm going to shove my fluff into the pumpkin and cinch it all closed. Now I'm going to use my darning needle with one of the yarn tails, and I'm going to bring that yarn tail back up to one of the ends where some of the other yarn tails are sticking out. And I'm going to kind of shape the pumpkin by squishing it down a little bit. We're going to pull that yarn tail tight and tie it onto one of the other yarn tails just to kind of get that. I like my pumpkins to not be round like a ball, but to be kind of rather squished down, kind of like the mini pumpkins that you buy in the store. Now it's time to really shape the pumpkin. I'm going to take one of my longest yarn tails in this project. Long yarn tails are key to being able to use everything and get it all finished. And we're going to take that yarn tail and we're going to create the bumps. And how I do that is I bring it down along a row of the knitted work, and I make sure that when I bring my yarn tail down that I'm lining it up, that it's going in between a row of knitting. That way you're not kind of crossing over the knit rows. I think it gives a nicer, cleaner look to the knitted work and makes everything look a little bit more uniform if you stay along one of those rows. And I'm just going to create, I usually do kind of a random amount. I don't really keep them uniform. I just kind of cinch it and bring it down along the rows, and usually I end up with maybe like 4 or 5 bumps. It just kind of really depends on how far I place those safety eyes against, because I do the face first, and then I'm going to go through and do the other bumps along, just kind of as even as I can in a sort of uneven manner, if that makes any sense. I want it to be kind of random, but not really. Now that the pumpkin is shaped, I can determine what is going to be the top and the bottom. I just kind of look and make sure my safety eyes are in the center here of the pumpkin after I've done my shaping. And then I will also look at each top here or bottom and which one I think looks best. This one kind of has a nice dip where everything's like going tightly into the center. This one is a little bit flatter, so I'm going to use this as the bottom, and the other one is going to be the top, where I add my curlicue and stem and maybe a leaf. Now it's time to add the stem. This stem has a hole in it, so it makes it easy to attach. You just thread your yarn through, kind of cinch it down. I bring it around the bottom and then kind of around some of the stitches and then back up to the top. And then I'm going to add my leaf using the same yarn tail. Now to add the leaf on the leaves that I make, I have 2 little holes in them, so I just like thread the yarn through. I leave about 1 inch of a yarn tail because I like my leaves to be just a little bit dangly. And then I'm going to bring that yarn tail down to the bottom and tie it onto one of the other yarn tails. And then we're going to get ready to add our curlicue. Now for the curlicue, I'm going to just do mine in the same color as the pumpkin, but you can also do a contrasting color. We're going to start with a chain of 13, and then beginning in the second chain from the hook, we're going to do 3 single crochets, and then you're going to do 3 single crochets into each chain until you get to the end, and you'll see that your corkscrew will naturally start to curl up when you do this. I'm going to use the yarn tails here from the curlicue to add to the top of the pumpkin. I'm going to use my darning needle and I'm going to thread it down through the center of the pumpkin, and I'm going to bring both of those yarn tails from the top down to the bottom, and then I'm going to secure it by tying it onto some of those yarn tails on the bottom. Now to get rid of all those yarn tails, so I just kind of make sure that everything's been tied together just a little bit. So I'm going to tie all these together, and once I've done that, I'm going to thread onto my darning needle and I'm going to hide them inside the pumpkin. So I usually just kind of weave around a few times, bring it out the side, and then I'm going to trim all the yarn tails off. And here's the finished little pumpkin. These pumpkins are fun to make, and they're actually pretty good stash bushers, especially for the curlicue. You can kind of use anything you have just laying around. When I made these pumpkins the first time, I made them in different colors, and I made them for my son's class when he was in kindergarten. We gifted the book Spookley the Pumpkin, and then we had a little basket with the pumpkins in it for the students to choose their own little pumpkin from Canyon's Pumpkin Patch. Since making this pattern, I've actually added a few things to my shop that you can use to make your pumpkins with. I've kind of used different safety eyes, and I made these little Halloween wooden charms that are cute additions. I also have a few paper printable tags you can use to add to your pumpkins to make them perfect for gift giving or selling. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to visit the blog post for the free PDF pattern, and then also links to all the little add-ons that I put onto my little pumpkins. Thank you.